Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about specifically what it means to have your Jupiter in Cancer or Jupiter in the 4th house. So my name is Brandon. I do astrology videos here on YouTube. If you're brand new to my channel, all of these videos I'm doing are part of a much larger series where I go through every single planet and every single house within that season. So I have a playlist down below that you can check out where I went through Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, and subsequently first, second, and third house. And obviously this is now the Cancer and 4th house series here. So we are going to be going into specifically what Jupiter means in Cancer, as well as what Jupiter means in the 4th house. And so this is a huge series for me, and has been something I have been working towards. And I'm really excited as we've been kind of going through this, and I've been really enjoying this process every single time that I am going through each individual video. So if you have your Jupiter in Cancer, this video is for you, or if you have your Jupiter in the 4th house, this video is also for you. If you look down the description box below, you're going to see the timestamps, so when I talk about what, so you can skip specifically to when I talk about your Jupiter in Cancer or your Jupiter in the 4th house. If you don't know if you have Jupiter in Cancer or Jupiter in the 4th house, feel free to check out down below, and you will see a link that will let you know kind of how to generate your chart and what else is going on, so that you can really understand if you have your Jupiter in Cancer or in the 4th house, or if you have any 4th house planets. Because this series is also for this week in regards to any 4th house planets. So if any of your planets are within the 4th house or within Cancer, this whole series, or this whole week rather, is for you as well. So with all that being said, obviously you guys know, like, comment, share, subscribe, all the things that the YouTube algorithm wants you to do. If you can do that, that'd be great, that'd be awesome. And then I also have information down below if you guys are interested in any of my bookings or websites or courses or anything like that too. So without further ado, let's kind of hit it off and just kind of really talk about what Jupiter means within astrology. So Jupiter in astrology has a very abundant, very positive, very overexpansive sort of energy. And the thing about Jupiter has a natural benefic or enlargement quality that it tends to bring to wherever it sits within the chart. And so dependent upon what Jupiter's sign and placement it's in, it will kind of work in certain ways. So Jupiter traditionally rules both Sagittarius and Pisces, and then because the opposite signs of its rulership, Gemini and Virgo, it's going to be considered to be in detriment in those signs. So in Gemini or Virgo, it's not going to be too happy. And then in regards to Jupiter in Cancer and Capricorn, Jupiter is actually considered to be exalted in Cancer, which means that it functions quite well. And then in its opposite in Capricorn, it's considered to be in fall. So with all that being said, there are so many different things that Jupiter represents in astrology. All those dignified things that I spoke on, and I spoke on this with the Jupiter and Gemini portion, but there's so many important factors when something is dignified like that. So in regards to it being Jupiter in Sag, Jupiter in Pisces, Jupiter in Cancer, Jupiter in Capricorn, anything that's kind of really within, or Jupiter in Gemini or Virgo, anything that's really within that kind of range of like, I don't want to say black or white, but very like enlarged sort of representation of those planets. So Jupiter it's kind of like, think of it as like these kind of extremes to a degree, where a lot of people tend to look at these kind of like the pivot points or the pinnacle points of that expression, whether it's Jupiter, Sag, Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, or it is, Jupiter in Cancer, Capricorn. So just something to think about in that regard as we kind of go through this here. But Jupiter has a natural beneficial quality. So it's naturally going to enlarge whatever it touches, and it's going to want to plant meaning and plant desire, and also just in general give you a way of extracting meaning and understanding why you are here, what the purpose of your life is, what you have to do, and the meaning behind why am I doing this? So there's so many why questions that are linked to Jupiter, and so much meaning and law and legality, as well as religion, religiosity, any sort of spiritual concepts, any sort of things that are faith-based are going to be related to Jupiter, and things that are more sensitive, more homely, more kind of private is going to be more on the Cancer side. And so we'll speak on this when we get to the Jupiter Cancer as well. But there is something about Jupiter's exaltation in Cancer that I think is really unique, because it's always been that exaltation that quite a lot of people, as astrologers and non-astrologers alike, are kind of confused as to why Jupiter exalts in Cancer. And there's my understanding of it as a non-Jupiter Cancer individual, is that there is this quality of it that really learns how to plant seeds, because Jupiter's a lot about planting seeds and about really creating that meaning and creating that purpose and that kind of belief and that faith. And so Jupiter in Cancer tends to do really well because it's really towing that kind of belief system, and it's really allowing the beliefs to really come from the rootedness of the family and in a very impactful, powerful, influential way. There's a lot of spiritual influence and there's a lot of kind of privacy. So I'll get to that in a second with the Jupiter Cancer. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But regardless, Jupiter overall within the natal chart, it has a lot to do with abundance, with opportunity, with growth. And if you have your Jupiter in Cancer or in the 4th house, this video is for you, and feel free to check out those segments as we get to them. But yeah, I think there's so much to be said on Jupiter. It's such an expansive planet, and I have so much obviously to say on it. So let's just get started off the bat. So let's talk about what it means to have Jupiter in Cancer. So Jupiter in Cancer, like I was just saying, has a exaltation quality to it, meaning that it's going to do quite well. It's going to function quite well. It's going to have a positive effect on the native. It's going to have the beliefs quite front and center, or quite capable of being easily accessed and easily brought to the attention of the native. So when Jupiter, because it rules faith and abundance and opportunity and kind of planting these seeds and stuff, and Cancer is like the root of our chart and kind of the time of our chart and of our lives that really is really private to us, and it's really intimate, and it's very much us listening to our own guidance system. And Jupiter allows us to really feel all of what our belief or our meaning could be on a private, internal, individualized level. And then from there, we decide how we want to move, right? We're like, how do I believe in these things? How do I find meaning in these things? And it comes from an individual kind of ability to sit with your own feelings, sit with yourself, and sit with the beliefs of your family and see how those have really impacted you in a positive or negative way. And so it allows you to have a very strong faith, a very strong understanding of faith within yourself that kind of comes from that innate inner world of Cancer, where it's a very positive influence for the internal world. Now, Jupiter in Cancer, there's going to be a lot of family beliefs that are going to be interwoven into this. Jupiter in the 4th house is a little bit more. And obviously you're going to want to see what the moon is doing within this chart, if you have Jupiter in Cancer, to get a better idea of what the emotional desires for Jupiter are. So let's say Jupiter is in Cancer, but we have, you know, the moon in Capricorn or in Scorpio. There's going to be a little bit more of a emotional difficulty to finding that faith, but once they understand and go within that faith and go within their feelings and really feel that safety that they really desire, that is when they're really gonna find their own, right? And so it kind of, with Jupiter in Cancer, even with a difficult moon, it's going to likely create a more ease of emotional expression. It is something that it's not gonna be the true for every single person, because you're gonna wanna look at the aspects and so many other things within the chart. But Jupiter in Cancer as a standalone does quite well. Obviously, it's exalted here, so it tends to do really well, and it's able to expand a lot of opportunities, a lot of options, and it's said to really speak to a lot of the faith coming from within and within the inner world and the inner system and the inner family unit and all those sorts of things. And the karma with the family typically is really deep, as well as Jupiter in the 4th house. But Jupiter in Cancer, it also allows for a lot of emotionality, a lot of emotional expression. And so when Jupiter is with the moon or connected with the moon, we're going to see an interesting quality of emotional, like a large emotional range of expression. So Jupiter Cancer can have a large emotional range, but there's also a large belief that's extracted from that emotional range. So they're like, okay, I feel all these feelings, all these things are happening. How can I really make sure that I understand why they're here? What am I doing, right? And they're aware of that as a Jupiter in Cancer and able to feel their feelings and acknowledge the meaning behind what they're feeling and behind why they're feeling what they're feeling, what they're securing in to do, right? So it's a really powerful placement. And by Jupiter's Cancer's house placements also tells you a little bit more of where this is going to be playing out. It also has something to do with culture as well. So Jupiter in Cancer, there is a lot of culture and ancestry that comes within this, but there's also a possibility of like foreign cultures or a foreign land or something of that foreign settlement. I tend to see that also with Jupiter in the fourth house is some sort of foreign settlement, moving to a different country, a different home country, something to that effect. Jupiter will tend to do in Cancer or in the fourth house of kind of just connecting the roots to some sort of meaning, or the meaning of one's roots, the moving of one's roots. So changing where you live and the meaning behind that. So being displaced and having a different family and knowing what family means and really being able to lean into that family unit is a really big part of Jupiter in Cancer and Jupiter in the fourth house story. Excuse me. So being able to truly allow yourself to, feel your feelings and dive into what Jupiter really wants out of Jupiter being in Cancer, which is a lot of just emotional understanding of yourself and your family and belief and faith. And it allows for that faith to just simply be felt and experienced, and not really needs to be confirmed or denied or experienced in a very external way. It's very internal, it's very quiet with Jupiter in Cancer. And that's why I think Jupiter does well in Cancer, because it's this really expansive faith, meaning, quality, and then the moon is like, okay, let me feel into that. Let me be really sensitive. Let me allow my own nervous system to really respond to what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing, and then figure out what that means to me. What does that mean to me? How do I feel about this? What's the meaning behind this? What are all these thoughts and feelings and emotions and like, what do I have to say? What I have to do? All these sorts of things. I think Jupiter in Cancer and in the fourth house has a very rich inner world that some people may not know about, but the results of that rich inner world are definitely brought to fruition with Jupiter being in Cancer. And that rich inner world also comes from the family upbringing and the beliefs that were instilled from the family in the beginning. And that family rootedness is a really big part of what we see with Jupiter in Cancer, Jupiter in the fourth house. And this has been such an interesting series as I've been going through this, because Jupiter is one of those planets that I understand quite well from like the Jupiter-Mercury dichotomy. But with the Jupiter and the moon, there is this very different response that Jupiter Cancer kind of is capable of bringing out, which is a lot of emotional understanding and a lot of emotional faith, and faith within why they are going through what they're doing. There's this inner kind of quiet faith with Jupiter in Cancer, because it's such a private world with Cancer, and it's such an intimate thing, and Jupiter here allows them to really understand the value of being quiet. And I don't say being quiet in like the yapping and talking about your stuff, but I mean being quiet and being still and allowing those feelings to kind of bubble up and feel them, and understand the value of them. And so the Jupiter in Cancer individuals typically understand, especially if Jupiter's in Cancer and the moon is in like another water sign or even in an earth sign, it's going to typically understand more of the importance of grounding within the body and being able to bring that feeling out. And so the emotional intelligence of any Cancer placement is really going to be their biggest gift. So it's how you utilize that, what you do with that, what you decide to put your meaning into, your belief into, your energy into. And if you have your Jupiter in Cancer, there is so much to be said on what you are believing in, what you have your faith in, and where that faith comes from. And that faith typically will come from an inner knowing, which I think is one of the most powerful places that a belief can come from. I think there's so many other Jupiter placements that get belief from different sorts of avenues. And Jupiter in Cancer, I think the reason, once again, why it exalts there is because there's this inner kind of resonance within this individual, within your emotional, your inner world, your nervous system, your instinct, your understanding of your emotions and your family. There's this innate understanding that is able to then immediately be translated into meaning and purpose and why am I here, what am I doing? And I think there's so much to be said there. And there is also a big part of this, both Jupiter and Cancer and the fourth house, that comes to speaking the truth about the family and being able to teach the family with Jupiter and Cancer, being able to be a kind of mentor or mentee for the family. And also, because Cancer does rule the public, there is going to be quite a positive impact on the public for most Jupiter and Cancer individuals, because of the fact that Jupiter exalts here and Jupiter wants to allow the individual to have a lot of connections with the public and to have a lot of understanding of emotionality and kind of the tides and ups and downs of the world and of people in general. And so Jupiter and Cancer, much like all other Cancer placements I've spoke about, It's a lot about understanding those tides, and I think those ups and downs and those highs and those lows. And that's why there is an importance for Cancer placements to understand the value of those ups and downs. And Jupiter, I think, understands it the most. Once they may get, because Jupiter and Cancer, the one thing that they may struggle with is like too much emotional range, where they can't quite find the meaning from all of the emotions that they're feeling and sensing. So there is a lot of sensitivity with this. But once they get past that, and once they learn that and integrate that and understand the meaning in their feelings once they're coming up, then they're going to be just fine in the long run. It's really namely about them being able to know that they're going to have ups and downs in their feelings. Everyone else is going to have ups and downs in their feelings, and being able to be in tune with your own allows you to be in tune with the public and everyone else is around you. And it's going to be a benefit for so many other people. The more you're exposing yourself to different emotional concepts and different emotional reactions to people and different emotional understandings and sensitivities. I think, once again, all Cancer placements can benefit from this. Jupiter, I think, is the one that benefits the most for multiple reasons. One, because it's able to get the meaning out of it so quickly. Mercury has a little bit of a difficulty with that, a little bit of a different struggle where it has to really conceptualize it. Jupiter here really just allows that meaning to just kind of be innately felt, innately experienced, and say, okay, I just have this intuition that's a little bit more like tuned in, if you will, of like how I'm responding to people are responding to me, how I'm walking into environments, how the environment feels to me. There's a lot of sensitivity that Jupiter and Cancer inherently has that gives them a lot of value in these conversations within what they are really trying to bring out, which is a lot more faith in other people, a lot more belief in other people, and their ability to really have a solid faith and belief coming from within them. And I think that's the part of Jupiter and Cancer that most people look past, is that the faith and the belief and the meaning comes from within you. And yes, you can get all the information, you can go to school, you can do all these different things, you can have conversations with so many people, you can learn and study, but the purpose behind why you're here is very, very personal. And I think that is where Jupiter and Cancer really has a whole different message to be brought out, where we really have to understand that our journey and our meaning of why we're here and our conceptualization of why we're here and our ability to understand what we're here to do, why are we here, what's the meaning of life, what's the laws that we're working with, what is like my purpose, right? The purpose seeker, right? When Jupiter's in Cancer and exalts in Cancer, no less, this makes me really think of the bigger picture of we all have our own inner, individualized, very, very subjective meaning and purpose and reasoning for being here. And our ability to sit with those feelings and feel those feelings allows us more to be able to further solidify that on an individual level. Because the moon, although yes, it is an individual, it is also the public. So it has kind of both of those two-way things. But at the end of the day, I really think Jupiter and Cancer, the reason why it does so well is because it's so individualized and it focuses upon that first. And then, I mean, obviously it depends on where Jupiter is placed in Cancer, because if it's in the 7th, it's going to be a whole different other story. But for the most part, there's this desire to really feel individually why you're here. What am I doing? What am I feeling? Why am I believing in this? What do I believe in myself to be? All these things. And that is so important, and above all, probably the most important. I mean, I don't think there's so much about figuring out, why is this person here? Why is this person here? What does this person do about my life? All those sorts of things. Jupiter and Cancer needs to really tune into themselves. I think that's why Jupiter exalts here, because that's where all the meaning is really going to come from, is when you tune into yourself and when you do the meditation, when you find your beliefs, when you do that inner work and really bring yourself into that inner focus. That is when Jupiter and Cancer is going to do quite well. Amazing work for themselves and the public and anyone that they may be involved with. It's a really powerful and potent energy. Now, with this as well, obviously, like I said, it's important to see what Jupiter is doing in regards to aspects, in regards to house placement. If Jupiter's house placement has already been released by my videos, feel free to check that out below. So I have released everything prior to the 4th house, so 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So feel free to check that out if you have Jupiter and Cancer in any of those houses, to kind of help put this puzzle a little bit better back together for you. And then if anything is post 4th house here, which is more than likely than not, obviously make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all those things, and then check out that playlist, and I will be updating that playlist as those things come out. so you can kind of get a better idea of that. And if any of you Jupiter and Cancers are interested in a reading with me, feel free to check that out down below. In the description box, I have all my courses and videos and stuff down there as well, so if you're interested in that. So I'm very appreciative of all of you Jupiter and Cancers that are watching this. You guys have such a beautiful faith behind you and so much richness behind you, and I can't wait to see how it really unfolds throughout what your life is meant to be and how your life is meant to go. And I would love to hear your stories down below as well. So with that, I'm going to see you guys in the next part. We talk about Jupiter in the 4th house. Okay, so we have Jupiter here in the 4th house. Now, this has a little bit of a obviously a more nuanced quality than the placement alone, because the placement alone in the 4th house is going to have the placement alone in Cancer is going to have kind of a more focused, keyed in sort of lesson, and it can be kind of placed wherever by house. Now, Jupiter in the 4th house can have a lot of different themes around it. When I had spoke about previously about Jupiter in Cancer, I referenced a couple things that are kind of similar to Jupiter in the 4th house as well, namely the ability to teach the family, the meaning behind the family, the learning from the family, teaching the family, that sort of thing, the faith behind the family's kind of journey and struggle and story. In that regard, there's a lot of meaning extracted from that. And there's a lot of foreign trade and foreign settlement that I tend to see with Jupiter in the 4th house, and being able to find a lot of opportunity for home improvements and home acquisition in other lands, in other countries and things like that, or other cultures. And being able to find immense belief and meaning in quieter, more private moments with your family and or anyone that you choose to call family. Whatever you decide is your private inner world, that is what Jupiter truly, truly wants in the 4th house. It wants us to explore the meaning behind that. And it gives a lot of support from the family typically, even if Jupiter is not well placed, it typically will do Jupiter things regardless. It's going to really create a stability that is unlike any other in the 4th house, because the 4th house is truly our rootedness, our groundedness, our most truest foundation. And when Jupiter is here, it allows us to really spread those kind of those roots out in ways that are really expansive and really opportunity driven and really impactful and influential for ourselves and others. And it allows us to really expose a lot of our own shortcomings through a lot of self-awareness and time alone with family, and being able to see ourselves within the family unit and within that private part of us, and being able to really explore that and share that with a lot of people. And it really depends, because Jupiter in the 4th house is it's going to definitely bring the meaning to the bottom of the chart. So it's definitely going to have this more private at home sort of thing. There definitely is a teach from home thing, or a private kind of inner world that Jupiter does within the 4th house, that it really wants you to learn from that and explore that and teach from that perspective. And so there is a large part of this that is people that are willing to and able to, and probably the ones that are meant to pioneer or really pioneer a new belief for the family, or really understand what the family beliefs really are, and be able to really solidify that. So it's a lot about understanding ancestry and really going into the rich culture of your family and what you were born into, because typically Jupiter in the 4th house, they're going to have some sort of interesting cultural background, or some sort of interesting cultural displacement as well. And there's a lot of meaning behind that cultural displacement and behind the homeland and what home means to them. And there can also just be a very rich culture outside of them even moving or settling in not their homeland as well. They could be in a very, very rich family within their own culture, and have a lot of abundance, a lot of land, right? Too, Jupiter in the 4th house, it has this like I said, kind of putting your roots out in so many areas. And so there is a great opportunity for Jupiter in the 4th house to grow land, quite literally, be in agriculture, be in farming, be in real estate as well, especially real estate in the 4th house with Jupiter there. That is a huge real estate publishing or any sort of in certain alignments. I could see this as not just necessarily working with real estate, selling real estate, but investing in real estate for sure. Or really investing in home renovations as well, home decor, or home improvement. That's a lot of what I would see with like Jupiter, even Venus as well in the fourth house can have that, where there is this natural kind of home improvement. But the thing about Jupiter there is there's more of a meaning and purpose behind whatever it is that you are doing privately than Venus. Venus is still going to give you meaning and purpose there, but it's going to be a little bit more close to the chest, if that makes sense. It's going to be more personal to you. It's going to be more related to, you know, relationships and more of like your internal private, not necessarily your day-to-day, but more of like the inner beauty that you're bringing out. But Jupiter here, because Jupiter moves so slow. So let me kind of elaborate on what I just said so you understand. And I'm also going to be, obviously you can check out Venus in the fourth house's video tomorrow as well to kind of get a better idea of this point. But the thing about Jupiter and Venus, you have a Venus return every year, pretty much. Outside of when it goes retrograde, it's going to take a little bit longer, but you have a Venus return pretty much every single year. And you have a Jupiter return. So you have a Jupiter return every 12 years. And so when we think about this, we think about Venus. When Venus returns, it's a lot about that kind of revisiting what we planted in regards to whatever Venus is, right? So if we're comparing Venus in the fourth and Jupiter in the fourth, Venus in the fourth is going to have that Venus return every year. Jupiter in the fourth is only going to have that every 12 years. So that's where I'm saying that there's more of a importance to analyze the meaning behind what seeds were planted in the family, all those things. With Jupiter in the fourth as opposed to Venus in the fourth, Venus in the fourth is still going to have that, but Venus in the fourth is going to have more of a expansive quality, a relational quality that is going to be kind of like consistently there. I'm not going to say Jupiter is not consistently there, but Jupiter is going to be kind of more so playing the long game, if you will, of really creating immense meaning and belief in a private world. Obviously, like I'm kind of going a little bit off here because I could go on so many different tangents of thought, but essentially there's so many different alignments that this can have, and this is kind of why I was kind of apprehensive to add Venus into this portion, but it makes sense for what I'm trying to say. But my point is Jupiter in the fourth versus Venus in the fourth, they're both positive, but Jupiter in the fourth has a lot more of, like, I don't want to say importance of seeds that it's planting and importance of meaning, but because Jupiter is inherently focused upon meaning and upon how we're extracting that meaning, how we're figuring out our philosophy, our beliefs, our faith, it has a lot more of a longer game and a longer of a sort of refresher. Because Jupiter, like I said, only is going to have that kind of fourth house return once every 12 years. I mean, granted, there is going to be activations and things, yada, 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 but for the most part, Jupiter in that fourth house is going to consistently kind of grow over time, especially if Jupiter is in an earth sign, Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn. It's going to grow that over time and create a consistent belief system that's further rooted within the individual, within the family's beliefs, and all those sorts of things. It's going to be really slowly kind of integrated over time, whereas Venus is still going to be integrated, but it's going to take a little bit more on the personal level. It's going to be integrated more on a more consistent level, I guess you could say, than Jupiter. But Jupiter also allows for, in the fourth, allows for a lot of context. It gives a lot of context that is very loaded in the front end or in the back end or in those returns as well. There's a lot of meaning and faith that is extracted from whatever the family was like, how the family raised you, the family beliefs, the meaning, the culture, all those things. And Venus in the fourth might not necessarily have the same exact circumstance as Jupiter in that fourth house there. Now, Jupiter in the fourth, as well as like real estate and kind of, planning of like the family and all those sorts of things, it also really brings us back to analyzing our ancestry and being able to fully understand that we are here to create something new and teach something new for our family, for our loved ones, for whomever we call family, and being able to be that kind of guiding light, that teacher in that regard. There's going to be a privacy to this with Jupiter in the fourth house, especially if Jupiter is your chart ruler, so you're a Pisces or Sagittarius rising. And so there is a lot of importance about being able to understand what family means to you and expanding your inner world, expanding what that concept could be, expanding what your inner private four walls that you go to sleep in and that you kind of relax in, what that can expand to be, what that can kind of quite literally improve your life to be, like get home improvements, get a bigger house, all those things. Always trying to find deeper ways to sink into oneself and feel into one's inner rootedness, inner security in that regard. Now, Jupiter in certain signs is going to do very differently in this house here. Jupiter in a fire sign like Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius is going to have a very active family life. A fiery fourth house just typically has that anyway. There's going to be a lot of activity, a lot of movement, a lot of wanting to, especially with Jupiter Aries, wanting to pioneer something more, wanting to be the leader of the family, break away from the family, try something new. Jupiter in the fourth in general, I think, is a lot of, all the fourth house planets I've been doing have been a lot of repetitious lessons around being able to be the family karmic breaker. And so Jupiter here, there's a lot of teaching the family to break their karmic ties that I tend to see here, outside of all of the different Jupiter signs. It's definitely something I just see in general, Jupiter in the fourth. But I think Jupiter in like Aries definitely has more of that, like I'm going to break apart from the family, I'm going to do something different from the family, that sort of kind of freedom seeking. Jupiter in Leo has a little bit more of the creative aspect of it, of doing it creatively, of their role in the family. There's a lot of that I tend to see with Leo in the fourth. There's a lot of what their role is, how they're able to be their own individual, how they're not being outshone or outshined by their family. Now, Jupiter here definitely has a more creative family, artistic family, or a desire to be artistic and creative that was not necessarily fulfilled by their family, need to be able to understand how to bring that out. And then, you know, Jupiter in Sag obviously is going to do quite well here. This is definitely more of the like foreign settlement indicators, I would say, having a different culture, learning from something else, and traveling a lot, having a rich cultural life, or even just a rich cultural kind of worldview. Even if you haven't traveled a lot, just being able to understand a lot of different cultures, I think is a lot of what Jupiter tends to do in the fourth. And that's Aries, Leo, and Sag. Then if we do, you know, water, so we talked about Cancer before, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. So these ones are a little bit more different here, because this is where I tend to see more of the psychics, the intuitives, the healers. When we see Jupiter in a water sign, there's a lot more of that focus around emotional support, right? Fourth house planets in general are going to have a gift of emotional support, emotional intelligence, but it's about how they utilize it and how deep they're able to feel within themselves, so they can then give that to someone else, right? So Jupiter and Cancer in the fourth, that's a double up on so much family richness, so much family beliefs. There's a lot of context there for the family heritage, and for the parents and what the parents taught you, and how the parental kind of roles were kind of divvied up, and what your meaning behind what you learned is there. Jupiter and Scorpio has a little bit of a different quality to it. This is going to be where there's going to be more of a uphill battle with the belief systems of the family, and feeling like you are being indoctrinated by your family to a degree, or not being able to really understand why someone would believe what they believe, and feeling like maybe they're not fully believing themselves or following their truth in that regard. And so that Jupiter Scorpio, unfortunately, in the fourth house is going to pretty much bring up this unethical use of beliefs and meaning and religion, all those things. And then Jupiter and Scorpio is meant to feel disempowered from their family belief systems, and then eventually break apart from that as well. So it's pretty powerful in that regard. And then Jupiter in Pisces in the fourth, this is another foreign settlement one, but this is more on the creative aspect. So foreign settlement, this is where I see a lot. This is definitely a mediumship one right here, Jupiter and Pisces in the fourth. But then there is also this quality of Jupiter in Pisces in the fourth that has a more escapist quality from their family belief systems, because they're feeling so much of so many different things. And so there's a lot to be said on that Jupiter and Pisces in the fourth, and I'd love to hear about what your experience has been, if you specifically have that one as well, and how your belief systems have been kind of shaped from your family, or from your rootedness into like the earth, because that's the thing with the fourth house as well. It speaks to the earth, and it speaks to our grounding ability. So there's a lot of gifts there too. And then Jupiter and Earth, so we have Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. This is a little bit more on the home improvement kind of side that I spoke on earlier. So home improvement, working from home, real estate, more of the business stuff, right? That's kind of what I tend to see with Earth fourth houses. And if you have Jupiter and Taurus, make sure to check out that video. I made that a while ago. But Jupiter and Virgo in the fourth, this is definitely work from home energy. A lot of a lot of the fourth house placements can tend to show up as work from home. It's definitely a pretty prominent work from home energy when things are kind of literally brought to the home and brought to the private life, and being able to understand what that means. And so understand where you want to do, what you want to do. So there is a lot of like support from the family typically about what you want to do as a career. When you have Jupiter in Virgo, Capricorn, any of the earth signs, honestly, in that fourth house, there's almost working with the family that tends to be pretty prominent. And then Jupiter and Capricorn in the fourth, this is definitely, because it is a Saturnian sign, there is going to be a delay in the ability to feel secure in oneself and secure within one's own like inner private most identified self, and being able to feel secure within the family as well, being able to know their role within the family. That's another thing about Jupiter in the fourth, outside of all the placements I've said thus far. There is an importance around Jupiter in the fourth to be able to understand what their meaning is in the family, what their role is in the family, what they're meant to teach the family. And sometimes that doesn't come until later, especially if you have Jupiter in Capricorn or a Jupiter Saturn aspect, or Jupiter Aquarius or other things as well. Jupiter Scorpio might take a lot longer. So there is a lot of things, and that's once again leaning back to the Jupiter return. That's really when that meaning of what you're here to do for your family really comes out and really shines in a lot of ways. And your ability to kind of ground within who you are, I think, is a really big gift with Jupiter in the fourth house. Now, Jupiter in air, we have Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. This is going to be way more on the intellectual side, obviously, as it's in an air sign here. Jupiter in air, it doesn't really do that well, because Jupiter wants to find meaning through its actions or through its feelings, right? So it exalts in Cancer. It rules Pisces, which are both water signs, and then it, does really well in its own sign of Sagittarius. But then in the other signs of like Gemini and Virgo, it doesn't do as well. Jupiter in an earth sign is going to want a lot of financial and physical stability, and I think there's meaning behind or past that the Jupiter in earth signs are going to have to understand there's something beyond the physicality that they need to really ground into, okay, I have all this money, I have all these things, but who am I without all of that, or with all of that, right? Who have I become with all these things that I now own, right? That's kind of what I would say with Jupiter in earth houses in general. Jupiter in earth signs in the fourth house. But then when we put Jupiter in air signs, Gemini, Libra and Aquarius, there is this like very social quality about it, but there is also this kind of airy, not quite connected, where it's just exploring ideas, right? Especially Jupiter and Gemini. It's a lot about the exploration of ideas, but not a lot about the grounding into them and feeling them and letting them ruminate, letting them kind of sit within you, which is what the fourth house does. And that's why Jupiter exalts in Cancer, because it wants to be able to feel those feelings and sit within those things and not just chat about them and have little conversations and lean into someone else with Jupiter and Libra, or really just kind of follow the trends with Jupiter and Aquarius. So it's a lot about being able to feel those feelings and being able to intellectualize them. And with Jupiter and Aquarius, it's a lot about, I'll get to this eventually when I get to Jupiter and Aquarius, but it's a lot about finding the group and the support that you have to be able to feed into your own belief system, and being able to kind of not necessarily like split apart yourself too much and try and appeal too much to the crowd. That's a lot of what Jupiter tends to do in Aquarius in the fourth. So it's all about the family and kind of knowing how you want to like change your family in that regard, and how you're listening to maybe other people's families and being incorporated other people's families that have a not toxic or a completely different culture than you, or a different upbringing, or a different raising their kids and having their family unit. And you're just kind of like, how do I navigate this? How do I import this into my own family, right? That's what we tend to see with Jupiter and Aquarius. Jupiter and Libra has a little bit more on the actual relational side. So similar to what I just said with Jupiter and Aquarius, except now it's more of a specific person, and more of the values of what that specific kind of person is bringing into your inner world, and how they impact your inner world in your family. And there can be with Jupiter in Libra in the fourth, especially if it's not well aspected, there could be a difficult cultural difference between you and your partner, and your family. So just be aware of that as well. But overall, Jupiter in the air signs in the fourth house is going to just have a natural desire to understand why they're here. That's all of what Jupiter wants to do in the fourth house, is understand why it's here, understand what it's here to do. It's going to do it different ways depending on those signs, obviously. But Jupiter in that fourth house has a different sort of importance upon mental and explorative ideas and shit. And so that is something that Jupiter in air is going to really, really need to conceptualize it and have people kind of bounce those ideas off them so they can kind of put it back together themselves. So if you have your Jupiter in the 4th house and any of those signs, any of those things, I would love to hear what your thoughts were on all of what I just said. Jupiter in the 4th has so much of a gift, and it's about how you're willing to feel that, how you're willing to feel into your family heritage and feel into and explore your inner world and work within that and expand your inner world, both physically, financially, spiritually, emotionally, all of those things. Be able to expand your inner world so you can then do something else in the outer world. That's really what a lot of what Cancer, Capricorn is really about in the 4th house and 10th house. All about that rootedness, that you can really build that kind of safe nest that you can come home to and then be able to go out and do more. So there's a lot more meaning behind those that have Jupiter in the 4th house in that nest building, if you will, as well as Jupiter in Cancer. There's a lot more meaning that they extract from that, which I think is really, really something to be said for a lot of this series here with Cancer and the 4th house. So with that being said, I am extremely grateful to be able to be here today. Thank you guys for allowing me to talk about Jupiter and Cancer and Jupiter in the 4th house. If you're interested in any of my videos, any of my readings, feel free to check down below. I have readings, I have courses, I have all the things down there. And then also, if you have anything past Cancer, feel free to obviously make sure you subscribe to that playlist so that you get those notifications when that playlist video comes out for whatever sign and or planet you may have in the house that is correlated with moving forward. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. If you guys have any comments, questions, or any input you want to put, please put that down in the description box below. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here, and I will talk to you guys soon.